My first visit to Seagrove Beach was in 1951. I was 8 months old. My father had come on his way back from a business trip to Tampa, and so he saw the sign that C.H. McGee Sr. put on the corner of 98 and 395, and it said Seagrove Beach, where nature did its best. You not only had elevation, but you also had the sand live oak trees that grew right to the edge. When they first got here, it was kind of buggy and stuff back there, and but then the weather changed and the breeze came off the Gulf, and it was beautiful, and my parents were sitting on the bluff, and my mother said, "Oh, it's just glorious here." And then my father said, "Well, I'm glad you think so, because I just put a down payment on a lot." In the summertime, there were always people here. In the wintertime, it was nobody here. I mean, it was, and in the 50s and early 60s, there were almost no permanent residents. There was just a handful of families. I mean, in Seagrove, maybe 3 or 4, but that was part of the charm of it.
Moving from a busier city like Rockford to this beach, 30A, there was not Seaside, there was not watercolor. To give you an idea what it was like, the Seagrove Village Market is where we would all work at. I mean, I worked for Cube McGee, but that place was kind of iconic for all. We would go get groceries there, and they would just write it down on a little tab, and the parents would pay monthly, and so we would always sneak the different things on the tab and be in trouble every month because this tab would grow like crazy. But that's where we would meet for the school bus. And the school bus would pick us up, and the only school at that time was still Freeport High School. Yeah, it was a very, very tight-knit community. Everybody knew each other.
In 1981, the town of Seaside was founded. Seaside, now heralded as the world's first new urbanist development, was designed as a new but old-fashioned looking beach town with wood-framed cottages, a large town square, and walkable access to housing and shopping.
Well, we remember Seaside right from the beginning, but the first thing that was there was an open-air tented vegetable stand on the beachside right there where Bud and Alley's is. And then soon after that, Robert Davis bought an old building, and he picked it up and he moved it out there, and that was the first restaurant. They just had like hamburgers and stuff. And then he sold the lots on the north side. We thought they were expensive, but of course, looking back, they were not. But they were small lots, and the houses were very modest and small, but very attractive and nicely designed. And it just kind of like a snowballed over time.
The architecture presents dynamic, magnificent buildings, and with that comes the art. The art scene grows right out of that. The early years of Seaside, it was an art colony at Ruskin Place. The Escape to Create program in Seaside was so significant with residents, women who were just dedicated to bringing us more art, more music. The creativity came at us in abundance.
She grew slowly at first, but eventually the novel concept drew attention, setting a standard for urban planning and architecture that would not only influence future growth on scenic 30A, but also in hundreds of new towns and neighborhoods around the globe. As more people began showing interest in developing communities along 30A, groups of residents came together to protect the land now known as Grayton Beach State Park and Topsail Hill Preserve State Parks from possible development.
What I'm so grateful for all the state land along 30A, right? We were really protected. And I have moved away and lived in different areas at different times. I mean, I lived out in California and it was packed full of people. I think it's going to continue to grow, and I think the county is going to continue to try to reel it in. In the early 80s, One Seagrove and beachside condominiums, those high rises that were right on 30A. Again, kind of the community came together when those started going up, and they put a moratorium where they put a height restriction. If not, we would see 30A lined with those giant condos. There was a lot of forethought. There's always been, and the community's always come together in that regard.
Then, in 1984, a group of residents working under the name Citizens for a Bike Path came before the Walton County Commissioners to propose adding a new bike lane that would gently glide alongside County Road 30A.
Bike path came along in 2004 or 5, somewhere in there. And I know they had worked on that forever to try to get some of the pedestrians and the bikers off of 30A.
Following the surprising success of Seaside's small-town model, other burgeoning beach communities soon followed. 8 miles to the east of Seaside, Rosemary Beach broke ground in 1995, following the same new urbanist footsteps established by its pioneering neighbor. The resort town of Watercolor, Florida, was born in 1999, followed by another new urbanist community, Alice Beach, in 2004. In 2005, Walton County's commissioners recruited longtime local Claire Bannerman to help pursue an official Scenic Highway designation from the state of Florida. They knew that securing such a designation would help put in place protective measures and sound developmental guidelines.
It took 4 years. Usually it takes a Scenic Highway designation 8 to 9 years. We had to go to Tallahassee, we had to have outreach in our own community, we had to hold open public forums, we had to recruit the community to support the project. A lot of community activists rallied around it, and we would meet at the TDC and present all the documentation that is required in this corridor management plan. It's signed off by all the leaders of the community, town managers, from Rosemary Beach, Jim Bagby, to Seaside. We were so proud of meeting the criteria for the full designation. And I said again, it was rare. We had a 12-member unanimous designation for this Scenic Highway.
Such scenic regulations included no billboard advertising along the road and preserving views of the Gulf and of 30A's precious coastal dune lakes.
It was important to connect the Scenic Highway designation to those rare coastal dune lakes for preservation. And that's what it all was with Beach to Bay, with South Walton Community Council and other citizens, grassroots organizations. And they were so supportive because we believed that official scenic designation would preserve and protect. It was that momentum of preservation, always.
And so, in 2008, the old road once again found herself with a new name, Scenic Highway 30A. Then, in 2021, she received designation as a national scenic highway as well. Did old State Road 30A pave over paradise, or did it create one? I guess the answer kind of depends on whether you're a glass half empty or a glass half full kind of person.
Well, I always wanted to live here. When I can remember as a little kid, we'd come over here, and I was always excited and elated and everything on the way here, and I was down and depressed on the way home. But in those days, you couldn't get people to come here. My parents used to try to get their friends to come from New Orleans, and they said, well, what are you going to do down there? You know, you could be bored to death. Well, my parents didn't care anything about shopping or restaurants or anything like that. They just wanted to be quiet and see the natural beauty of things, you know, so they didn't care about all that stuff.
I'm so grateful that I got to live that, but I'm also trying to find gratitude in today. I know there's people that complain about the growth and all that, but that's everywhere. It's not just 30A, it is literally everywhere. What a lot of people don't understand about growing up here, there wasn't really a lot of work. Okay, so everyone was like, wants to go back to the good old day, but the good old day, you know, we were selling Christmas trees and oranges on the side of the road to make a living. Today, you know, we can make a living.
The way the development happened, it was always like a stair step. So you'd have a big boom and then it would flatten out. A boom and then a flatten out.
When the Truman Show came along into Seaside, at that period of time, I'm not sure, from then moving forward as all the publicity that movie got, it seemed like from then we kind of rocketed into the next dimension in the area.
Time passes and We just need to review what our goals are and where we want to be and where do we want our children to go to school. Very important. How do we provide for all those growth changes?
We're so fortunate to live in a place that people every day and get to live a life every day that most of these people come down to spend 1 week.
In another few decades, I suspect we'll look back on these as the good old days. And we'll wish we could somehow get them back. But that's not how this road works. So, in the meantime, just enjoy the ride.